It's Friday, December 2nd, another nail-biter in Georgia. We start here. Control of Congress is decided, but the midterms still have loose ends.
You hold on to a Senate seat in a state like Georgia, you have it now for the next couple of election cycles. That's a big deal.
Trump and Biden are sticking to the sidelines, but the stakes are high. And the surprising slide in gas prices.
If gas and fuel prices come down, that headline inflation number would come down too.
Is this the light at the end of the inflation tunnel? Plus, inside the Taylor Swift Ticketmaster meltdown.
When you heard they canceled the general sale?
Oh, I was furious.
Our correspondent searches for answers from Swifties. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Devin Dwyer. Good morning. Happy Friday. Brad's off today. As we head into the weekend, the political spotlight is again trained squarely on the state of Georgia.
We're in a runoff, but I was built for it.
Are you ready to vote?
Yes, the midterm election was about a month ago. Yes, we know Republicans are locked to control the House, Democrats retaining the Senate. But Tuesday's runoff election in Georgia, and that Senate race between Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker, has so much more on the line. It's one of a handful of loose ends from the midterms that could have a major impact on our government and our lives. And they need to, of course, get tied up before the new year. Our ABC News political director, Rick Klein, joins me now. Rick, you getting any more sleep?
Not yet. We'll see when this is all done.
The election,
it's
election that
done.
never ends.
They never do anymore.
Well, today, as you know, is the last day in-person voting in Georgia. More than 800,000 votes already. I mean, where do things stand in that race? It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's interesting because the record was broken this week for early voting in one day, and then the next day it was broken. That record was broken. It might be a little bit misleading just because there were fewer options for early voting and fewer options for voters generally to vote. So turnout may be down overall, but there's clearly a lot of enthusiasm around this race, even though it's kind of a snap election, only 4 weeks after the first round of voting as opposed to 2 months last time around. Voters in Georgia feel it. They hear it. They know how important it is, even if it isn't about Senate
And the
control.
polling shows it's still a dead heat.
Yeah, look, I mean, this was a one-point race a month ago. There's nothing to expect that either candidate has pulled away.
This race is about character and competence.
I got to say, most of the momentum seems to be on Raphael Warnock's side. He was out there with President Obama last night.
And that means all of us doing our part to make sure that Raphael Warnock goes back to being the United States Senator from the great state of Georgia.
Intriguing to me that he was bringing in Obama, but not Biden or Trump on the other side. Think about your surrogates here. Democrats have been very hyped up on the way to bank their votes early. It's how they won in races around the country last time around. It's how they won in those runoffs 2 years ago.
This is the greatest country because we have the ability to vote and have fair elections.
They still have this strategy that has voters get out there. A lot of them are waiting online an hour and a half, 2 hours for early voting, banking votes even before Election Day.
And yet another round of allegations against Herschel Walker coming out again overnight. He's just in this 11th hour before the runoff. I mean, is that going to have any impact?
Look, at this point, if you're inclined not to vote for Herschel Walker based on allegations of women, I don't think there's new information that can be added to this. And in fact, his campaign is not even engaging in it. They're not denying, they're not even answering the questions about it because they think it's so irrelevant for the campaign at this point.
The B team had enough time to be in there. Now it's time for the A team to go in and play. And that's why I said, put me in the game, coach. I'm ready to play.
Republicans still have some advantages in Georgia. But keep in mind, Devin, 200,000 Georgians voted for Brian Kemp, the Republican incumbent governor, just last month, and didn't vote for Herschel Walker at the same time. So they took an affirmative step to vote, but not vote for Walker. Now they have to vote with that Walker-Warnock race, the only race on the ballot.
So the fact that Democrats pulled out wins in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, I mean, obviously what's going to happen Tuesday in Georgia isn't going to, have as much significance and control of the Senate, but it could have a big difference for Democrats, 51 seats versus 50 seats in the Senate, right? Help us understand what that could be.
Yeah, Devin, it matters inside and outside the Senate. On the inside game, the way that committees are structured, if you're in a 50-50 world, you have as many Democrats as Republicans on any individual committee. You get an advantage in terms of your committee makeup with even a 51-49 Senate. You also, in terms of passing legislation, how many times have we talked about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema as those holdout Democrats? Well, now you only need one of the two of them to get all the Democrats together.
So no longer can one Democrat hold it up.
That's right. You need two, and that can isolate who the one or the two could be. It changes those dynamics. And it's not too early to think about the 2024 map, Devin. I've looked at it, and it is brutal for Democrats in the Senate.
This is all about fighting inflation. That's what it's about. Inflation is just absolutely destroying families across West Virginia and across America.
They've got to hold on to seats in West Virginia, in Montana, in Ohio. These are very Republican states these days. And so to walk into the 2024 election with a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of a margin for error with that 51 versus 49, and of course, 6-year terms. So if you hold on to a Senate seat in a state like Georgia, you get to do that. You have it now for the next couple of election cycles. That's a big deal.
Before I let you go, Rick, I got to ask about a couple other loose ends. I mean, there have been surprisingly few legal challenges and recounts, but in some places, Cochise County, Arizona, for example, Republicans have been refusing to certify results. That appeared to end overnight. But what do you make of that and the handful of disputes still playing out?
It is, I think, to me, instructive about how firmly the big lie around the last election has ensconced itself in people's minds. That people would be looking for problems where they flatly don't exist. Would be even threatening to disenfranchise all of a county's voters based on things that have not been proven at all.
Everybody wants to call us election deniers, right? They want to call Republicans election deniers. I'm a lie denier. I'm an ambassador for truth.
The big concerns that a lot of people had, I think, rightfully about the election going smoothly and people respecting results have gone away. There are recounts, there are legal challenges, there's all the things that you can go through, but there's nothing like the heated post-election rhetoric that we saw out of former President Trump in 2020.
The midterm election that never ends. Rick Klein, thank you so much for helping us break it down. Have a great weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks, Devin.
Next up on Start Here, a different kind of sticker shock at the gas pump. After this.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7 straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
More performances by Dr. Pol? That rocks. He's got the moves that make your animals groove. Let's go. It's a show you won't want to miss.
I'm not going to be here forever. Maybe.
The Incredible Dr. Pol. New episode Saturdays at 9 on Nat Geo Wild.
Bring your friends. Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys? Bring your friends.
Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
What just happened?
This was a terrible experience.
Ticketmaster gaslighting us. The website fully crashed.
Nightmare.
So what went wrong?
Everything.
This is really unprecedented.
All of these things were preventable.
Does any part of you blame Taylor?
Ticketmaster or whomever else has to figure out how to solve this before Beyonce announces her tour.
Taylor's Ticketmaster disaster. Impact by Nightline. Now streaming on Hulu. After an extraordinary news-making year, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
This is where I belong. This is home. Real dirt in the sunlight again. I'm very excited. Anything could happen at any moment. My heart is so happy right now. We're making magic. We're making magic.
With so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. Been a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
From America America's #1 news comes the all-new ABC News app. Breaking news, incredible video, faster, smarter, and customizable to your interests. If you love being in the know, you're gonna love this. Experience the all-new ABC News app. Download it now.
Tonight, falling prices at the pump. How low could they go? Plus, Made in America is back for the holidays. More Americans turn to the most watched newscast on television. World News Tonight with David Muir.
For the last 9 months since Russia invaded Ukraine, it's safe to say the global economy has been on a nauseating roller coaster.
Americans now feeling the economic impact of Russia's war in Ukraine with soaring consumer prices, record high gas prices for
stock markets are down on the year, so are 401k retirement plans. Inflation, of course, still at 40-year highs, and gas prices reached once unimaginable levels. In June, remember, Americans were paying on average $5 a gallon.
Defending freedom, defending democracy was not going to go without cost for the American people and the rest of the free world.
But over the last few months, there's been a remarkable price plunge, and now the average for a gallon of unleaded is at the lowest level in this country since February, before the war in Ukraine. All of this exactly the opposite of what most analysts expected for this time of year. So what's going on? ABC's Elizabeth Schulze reports on business and economics and joins me now. Elizabeth, this is quite the turnaround.
Yeah, you know, Devin, one analyst described the move that we've seen in gas prices this year as a little bit of a roller coaster. It went straight up, stayed there for a second, and it plummeted back down. And we've really seen this record-breaking spike after Russia invaded Ukraine. Now we're back to where prices were before that happened, around $3.47, according to AAA, per gallon. Gas Buddy's actually predicting gas could go below $3 a gallon by Christmas time.
Below $3.
Below $3. You know, this is great news for people who are driving, but one of the reasons why prices have been coming down maybe isn't so positive, Devin, and it's because of concerns about global demand. So basically, countries around the world have been bracing for an economic slowdown, for a possible recession. If there was a recession, that would mean there's less demand for oil, there's less demand for gas, and that is why prices would then drop. And at the same time, we've seen global supply going up. Major oil producers have boosted production. We've seen some releases from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
The Department of Energy will release another 15 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, extending our previously announced release through the month of December.
So more supply, lower demand, that generally is what's been translating into some of these lower prices at the pump.
And sort of defying expectations, right? I mean, we were led to believe that headed into the winter, when there would be rising demand for heating oil, that could spill over, into gas prices and keep everything high, right?
That's right. And, one of the things that's really important to keep in mind about the oil market is that it's always trying to look even further into the future. So traders maybe looked and said, okay, there might be enough oil demand for the next couple months through this winter season. What's going to happen even further out after that? And that's where some of these concerns about the economic slowdown are coming into play.
But I mean, right now, this is pretty good news for families as they're doing Christmas shopping. I mean, back of the envelope calculations here, I'm going to invoke my Minnesota status with my fellow Minnesotan. Gosh, a 20-gallon Dodge Caravan, to fill that up 5 months ago, $94 in the Twin Cities. Today, I just checked, $66. I mean, that's some real cash.
I drove a minivan in Minnesota growing up, so I'm very happy to hear that news, Devin. I think a lot of drivers will be.
Love that. Let's talk about inflation. I mean, gas prices have been a big factor in inflation, forcing up delivery costs, among other things. I mean, so does this mean now that with falling gas prices, we could see a trickle-down effect in other areas?
Yes, absolutely. Gas prices are key to the inflation picture for a couple of reasons. So first, because fuel is such a big component of the consumer price index, that key measure of inflation. If gas and fuel prices come down, that headline inflation number would come down too. And it's something that we've seen in recent months as these numbers have fluctuated. There's also, as you pointed out, the fuel costs for companies.
We might have to show an increase as the gas goes up just to be able to stay afloat.
If companies and businesses are spending less on gas, that means that they could potentially lower costs and lower prices for consumers. And then there's this really important piece in the inflation picture when it comes to gas prices, and this is all about expectations. If you think about it, you're driving past the gas station every day, you're looking at the price. If you see consistently that it's high, that's going to reinforce your expectation that inflation is staying high. If it costs less to fill up when you go to the pump, that could tell you, okay, inflation is getting better, and that could encourage consumers to keep spending more going forward, could bring those inflation expectations down in the long term, too.
So if this slump in prices is anything more than a passing blip on the gas prices radar, then perhaps we could be in for some good news on inflation. So I guess that begs the question, I mean, how long will this last? Do we have any sense of whether this is going to hold through the winter?
Well, just as much as we've seen some of the spikes up and down, it could always happen again. And there are a couple of wild cards that traders, analysts are looking at in the oil market. One of them is OPEC+.
The most pivotal and more important thing for all of us in this table and others is to make sure that we have a stable, sustainable, stable market.
That group of the world's biggest oil-producing countries, they could always decide, hey, look, prices are going down. We're actually going to cut supply again. And that would then send prices potentially spiraling. OPEC is actually set to meet next week. So some traders are bracing for that possibility. The other wild card is that the U.S. and Europe are set to put a cap on the price of oil. And this is basically a way to try to punish Russia, to try to limit Russia's profits from oil sales. This is something that's never really been done on that scale before. And there could be implications that could ultimately send gas prices higher, too.
A lot to watch. Those wild cards always keeping us on our toes. Elizabeth Schulze, I know you'll be tracking all of that. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much. We'll be enjoying those low gas prices while it lasts.
Thanks so much, Devin.
It was the meltdown that almost broke the internet and crushed a few souls in the process.
It's me. Hi. I didn't think this Taylor Swift ticket situation could be any worse, but oh my God.
The race to buy tickets last month for Taylor Swift's first tour in almost 5 years, that pre-sale that imploded and the general sale that was canceled, has already become the stuff of legend.
My heart's beating so fast still.
I have tea with Ticketmaster and the Eras Tour. The website fully crashed and it put me back at the beginning.
Millions of fans, of course, were denied the chance to buy a ticket on Ticketmaster. Millions more were exasperated by the price, both in dollars and the physical and emotional toll. So we wondered what's now known about what went wrong, who's responsible, what's being done to make the process better. ABC's Ashen Singh did a dive into the Ticketmaster mess for Impact by Nightline. You can stream it on Hulu. He joins me now. Hey, Ashen, I mean, this whole thing was a fiasco for anybody who loved Taylor Swift. I'm not a Swiftie, but I had an impossible time even getting registered. The smoke has cleared now. What's the bottom line? Why did this happen?
Yeah, Devin, what you got was a perfect storm when one of the biggest artists in the world actually decides to tour after years. And she's got an absolutely rabid fan base. And the biggest ticketing agency in this country does not anticipate nearly how many fans are going to be there for the pre-sale. And not only that, you've got technical issues.
Liberty Media is the majority stakeholder in Ticketmaster. Their CEO appearing on CNBC's Squawk on the Street.
The site was supposed to be opened up for 1.5 million verified Taylor Swift fans. We had 14 million people hit the site, including bots.
Ticketmaster set up this pre-sale date, ended up crashing the site. Many fans, in fact, most fans were not able to get tickets to this show.
I have the Midnight's cassette here. I actually really like the way it plays on cassette.
Do you even have a cassette player?
Yeah. Right
One of the biggest Swifties that we spoke to was this guy named Steven Sullivan. He's actually considered to be the voice of Swift Talk.
All this time, I thought Taylor wrote Right Where You Left Me about some kind of breakup or something. Turns out it was always about Ticketmaster.
It was a shock to many in the community that he didn't even get a pre-sale code.
The way Ticketmaster works with their verified fan system, there's actually nothing to verify fans. It's just you give them your information and then you're put into a pool. And if you're lucky, you get selected to get a access code for ticket sales.
This idea of the verified fan was not necessarily verified. And fans like Steven were pretty upset about that.
If you get waitlisted, then you have a chance to get a code if after pre-sale there are still tickets left. I knew pre-sale was going to sell out. That was never a doubt in my mind.
So was this a technology problem?
It was definitely a technology problem to start. But what ended up happening was it exposed many flaws in the overall system.
And some states' attorneys generals also weighing in.
We're talking about someone who dominates the market with 70+% market share. We need to be really sure that there's not some sort of gaming going on that's taking advantage of consumers.
One of the other big components that fans were complaining about was this concept of dynamic pricing that exists within the ticket buying system, which is basically meant to counteract the resale market. A lot of the times when you are buying your tickets to your favorite artist concert on a site like Ticketmaster, you'll see the price actually go up algorithmically based on responding to what they think the resale market will be.
So dynamic pricing allows the artist to capture this revenue herself rather than simply see someone who's sitting in front of a computer, has nothing to do with the show, contributes nothing artistically, make that profit by buying the ticket and then reselling it.
I wanted to tell you something that I've been so excited about for a really long time, have been planning for ages, and I finally get to tell you, I'm going back on tour.
So a big question in this is, what is Taylor Swift's kind of culpability in all this, and how does she sort of fit into the system? So our team was actually able to reach out to Taylor Swift and say, hey, do you guys use dynamic pricing? And they were able to unequivocally deny they did not and will not be using dynamic or platinum pricing for the Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. So they vehemently denied that. That said, what a lot of the Swifties that we are speaking to did say is that they really hope that Taylor is able to sort of, rock the boat when it comes to this system.
When you heard they canceled the general sale?
Oh, I was furious. I think this broke a trust because it broke not just a trust between Ticketmaster and her. It hurt a lot of her fans.
The ticket industry is a giant to take on in the United States, but Swifties basically believe there's anyone who could do it. It is Taylor Swift.
And it wouldn't be the first time, right? Pearl Jam back in the 90s filed an antitrust complaint with DOJ against Ticketmaster. They also tried to boycott Ticketmaster, and it didn't work.
Exactly. In 1994, I believe it was, right after their Versus album, which was one of the biggest albums in the country at the time.
All the members of Pearl Jam remember what it's like to be young and not have a lot of money.
Pearl Jam tried to go on tour following boycotting Ticketmaster.
We've attempted to keep the ticket price to our concerts to a maximum of $18. In addition, we've also tried to limit any service charges that may be imposed on the sale of those tickets to a reasonable percentage of the actual ticket price.
They try to create these deals with different venues, but the point is that these venues, logistically, who did not have these exclusive deals with Ticketmaster, were not capable of handling, the fan base that Pearl Jam would be bringing in, the numbers, the logistics, literally from safety protocols that were not able to be met. The biggest stadiums in the country had these exclusive ties to Ticketmaster.
Ticketmaster's exclusive agreements with most of the suitable venues and promoters has left most bands without any meaningful alternative for distributing tickets.
And here we are about 20 years later, and you've got lawmakers promising hearings again, and you got the company denying again that they engage in monopolistic practices. They say there's plenty of competition. It just doesn't meet the standards of their website as much as it was flawed in this case. I mean, what do you think?
So it's a giant, and it's clearly been cemented in the concert buying experience that has existed within this country for decades now. So it's going to take a lot to move the needle on this. But, I think when you see a fan base as rabid and as fervent as the Swifties are, it can only mean worse things to come for the Beehive, right?
Yeah, and the Beehive, we should say, are those millions of equally diehard Beyonce fans, as they're known, getting ready for her tour. Another big test ahead for concert ticketing. Ashin, your reporting was fascinating on so many levels, especially that inside look at Swiftie World. Check it out, Impact by Nightline, streaming now on Hulu. New episodes every Thursday. Ashin Singh, thanks so much.
Thank you, Devin. Appreciate it, man.
And one last thing about last night. It may have been in a tent in the backyard, but the first White House state dinner in 3 years, the first since COVID, was certainly something to behold.
Please join me in raising our glasses, which neither one of us have. There you go.
It was a who's who, not just of Washington, but of America. 300 ambassadors and secretaries, governors and mayors, Republican and Democrat, plus singers, supermodels, and Hollywood superstars, all sitting along titans of American business. First Lady Joe Biden hosting them all to honor the U.S.-France alliance, saying she was inspired by her mother.
She would bring out the china and put fresh flowers on the table and light the candles.
Even if we were only having fish sticks from the freezer, she always made our dinners feel special.
Last night's menu was certainly that. America's oldest ally was feted with butter-poached Maine lobster, American caviar, ravioli with White House garden squash, and world champion Oregon cheese, plus a performance by Grammy winner Jon Batiste.
Vive la France et vive l'amitié entre nos deux pays.
Perhaps most surprising, though, is how rare these White House galas have become. I crunched the numbers. Jimmy Carter held 25 state dinners by this point in his presidency. Ronald Reagan had the most of any president, 54 state dinners over 8 years. Donald Trump, by comparison, well, he had just 2, and one of those was for France and President Macron.
God bless you, God bless France, God bless our alliance, and God bless America.
But for all the pomp and pageantry, the Biden White House says these dinners still do matter, mostly for the symbolism over the substance. And after years of strain between the U.S. and Europe, this one was about a reset and a reminder we all have more in common than what sets us apart. Start Here is produced by Kelly Therese, Jen Newman, Brenda Salinas Baker, Madeline Wood, Vika Aronson, Iru Ekpanobi, Cameron Chertavian, and Tara Gimbel. Ariel Chester is our social media producer. Josh Cohen is director of podcast programming. Brad Milkey, of course, our esteemed managing editor. And Liz Alessi is head of ABC Audio. Thanks to Lakia Brown, John Newman, and our intern, Nania McLean. And special thanks this week to Chris Berry and Brooks Lancaster. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend.
With so much at stake, so much on the line,